So this module is providing an overview to the various accounting systems and the types of accounting. So there's basically three broad categories of accounting. There's managerial accounting, which is more focused on providing information for people inside the organization, the management team, to help them make management decisions. So in management accounting, typically you're looking at budgets and forecasts and comparing to actuals and explaining why the results didn't match up with what you had anticipated. With financial accounting, the focus here is on users who are outside the organization, so producing your external financial statements, for example. And you need, of course, to provide financial statements to your members, and depending on the industry that you're operating in, if you're a credit union or an insurance company, then you're probably going to have to provide financial statements to the regulators as well. So the third type of accounting is taxation, and taxation varies quite a bit from one jurisdiction to another. Even within Canada, each province, of course, has its own unique tax regime, and certainly from one country to another, the taxation laws are different. Another concept covered in this module is the unique nature of the cooperative business structure. So we compare the cooperative structure to the not-for-profit and the public sector. And there you'll see in the lecture notes, there's a table there that provides a very detailed description and comparison of the business structure of a cooperative in comparison to commercial enterprises and the not-for-profit. And we look at such aspects as the ownership, members versus shareholders or partners, how the directors must come from the membership, the voting, and the sharing of surplus. So those are some of the unique items for cooperatives. So when we're looking at cooperatives, they don't really need to fit in to a particular category. We got to figure out what type of business are they. So if you look at the for-profit versus not-for-profit, they don't really neatly fit into either of those categories. In fact, a lot of people would argue that cooperative fits in that hybrid middle ground in terms of being grouped perhaps with social enterprises and trading charities. So when we're looking at accounting, accounting is really governed by the standard setters. So various countries, most countries would have an accounting standard setting organization to establish the rules for their particular jurisdiction. So I just provide some examples here. In Canada, the Charter of Professional Accountants, they set the accounting standards for private enterprises. In the US, the FASB, the Financial Accounting Standards Board. In the UK, you have the Financial Reporting Council. Then on an international basis, you have International Financial Reporting Standards, commonly known as IFRS. And those are standards that are intended to be followed by businesses globally. And when IFRS was developed, the intent was to provide information for investors in the global economy. So if you're looking to the markets to raise funds for a company, if your financial statements are done in adherence to IFRS, then that allows investors in capital markets to be able to compare one organization to another. So some cooperatives do adhere to IFRS. In Canada, for example, it's typically those that are what we call publicly accountable. So if you hold funds on behalf of others, then you are required by law to use IFRS. So in Canada, the credit unions Of course, they hold funds for others, so they are required to prepare their financial statements in accordance with IFRS. And if you are not dealing in capital markets or you're not publicly accountable, then typically co-ops don't bother with IFRS. They just use accounting standards for private enterprise. So one unique feature of the cooperatives is the notion of member equity. And that really is the one thing that sets cooperatives apart and distinguishes them from commercial enterprises. It's a vehicle for gaining membership rights and benefits associated with becoming a transacting member. It's a form of owner capital. There's economic benefits associated with participation in the co-op, and it's more focused on your participation rather than the number of shares held, as would be the case for a corporation or commercial enterprise. So the voting rights are based on membership, not individual shares, and we look at the net assets held in common in terms of limited residual rights. So in addition to the accounting rules and standards for each country and the international standards, there are no globally recognized reporting standards in terms of all of the non-financial information that cooperatives typically include in their annual reports. However, guidelines are available from a number of sources. One source is, of course, here at St. Mary's, we have the Center of Excellence in Accounting and Reporting for Cooperatives, CARC, and we provide guidance. We have 6 standard, a series of statements of recommended practices. We call them SORPs, and you can see those on our website. And it would also be a good idea to let your CFO or your controller in your co-op know about the CARC and the and this section of its website in terms of reporting guidance. And we are also, of course, working at the moment on an international project led largely by Cooperatives UK to come up with some additional accounting and reporting standards specifically to address the cooperative needs. So for Module 1, the Living Lab, here you can use your own co-op or another one, and this varies by assignment. So if your co-op, it's not really providing you with the type of information you would like to have to address the questions for this discussion board, then you're certainly welcome to choose another cooperative. So the discussion here centers around industry-specific accounting standards just for co-ops versus regular for-profit accounting standards. So should there be industry-specific? And there's an ongoing debate about that. Some would argue no, others would argue yes, so I want to hear what you think about it. And also the discussion extends to who should you be comparing your performance to. So credit unions, some would say, I want to compare to other credit unions, but then some in the credit union sector would say, no, we're in the same industry as banks, so we should compare to banks. And then I guess there's a third group who say, look, we should compare to both to other credit unions and to the banks. So make sure you answer both questions. The minimum is a response to at least one other posting. I'd like to see more. So you have till Sunday, January 19th to complete your initial posting. So then that gives everybody a week to read through the postings, to learn from them, and then to post some comments or questions. And that has to be done by January 26th. So that concludes Module 1.